We continue now at the top of Daf Ayin Zayin Amud Beis Mesechet Sanhedrin. This is Sanhedrin Daf 77b. On the previous summit, there was a machlokas amoraim between Rav and Rabbi Zera. Let's say a person places a vat over somebody else, and then the constriction of the air, the hevel, that causes the person to die. Or let's say he removes the ma'aziva, he removes the plaster of the roof, and the person is sleeping in the house. It causes it to get cold, and that causes the person to die. So in that situation, we have a machlokas amoraim, whether the person is going to be liable or not. And the Gemara suggests, let us say that it's Rabbi Zera who says that the person is not going to be liable, because we find that Rabbi Zera also says, let's say a person's in a house of marble and someone comes and lights a candle in that house and it causes hevel, it causes bad air which kills the person. So Rabbi Zera says chayiv in that case, and the Gemara wants to infer it's only chayiv because the person actually went ahead and lit the candle. But in the case over here where you're just taking the vat and turning it over onto the person and the hevel's coming from the person's own mouth, there's no one lighting the candle. So there it would seem that the person is patur. But the Gemara says it's not true, because in a situation by the marble, by the house of marble, so b'shaite, at that moment, meaning at the moment that you have the person in the house without lighting the candle, there is no hevel, and that's why it's necessary to light the candle. But over here where you're overturning the vat over the person, below shar ganami maschel havla b'shaite, even without a candle, that hevel begins at that moment when you put the vat over the person, and therefore Rabbi Zera would actually say chayiv in that case as well, even though there was no candle that was lit. Rashi says, b'shaite miyad b'shas kafiyah, from the moment that you overturn that gigas, that vat over the person, maschil, already the hevel begins, and then it just gets stronger and stronger, and so again Rabbi Zera would say chayiv in that case as well. And the Gemara continues at the two dots with a mnemonic for the upcoming Gemara. Simin, Sulam, Tris, Samonin, Bekosel. The mnemonic is ladder, shield, herbs, and wall. And the Gemara says, Amar Rava says, Dochful labor, if somebody pushes someone else into a pit, Vesulam babor, and there's a ladder in the pit, he could get out of the pit. Uba acher vesilko, and then somebody else comes and removes the ladder. Ve'afilu hu kadam vesilko, and even if he, the person who pushed, he goes ahead and removes the ladder, Potter, he is exempt to ba'idna deshadi, because at the moment that he threw him in, Yachol lalos, who it is possible for the person to get out. There is a ladder there, and the removal of the ladder is considered to be grum, it's just considered to be indirect, and that's why he is not liable. And the Gemara continues, V'yamar Rav, and Rava says, Zarak chetz, if a person throws an arrow, tris biyado, and the person has a shield in his hand, so it's not going to damage him. Uba achra unatalo, and then somebody else comes and takes the shield away. V'afilu hu kadam unatalo, and even if he, the person who threw the arrow, he removes the shield, Potter, again, he's going to be exempt. V'idna deshad yabei mifsak piskei giri, because at the moment that he threw it, so that arrow was really cut off, it was going to be stopped by the shield, and again, the removal of the shield is considered to be something that is indirect, and that's why he is potter. V'yamar Rav, and Rava says, Zarak bochetz, if he throws an arrow at him, v'samonin biyadu, when the person has herbs in his hand, which will be able to heal him if he gets struck. Uba'acher upizron, and somebody else comes and scatters them. V'yafilu hu kadam upizron, even if he goes ahead and he scatters them, again, potter, he will be exempt. Ba'inna deshadabe, because at the moment that he threw it at him, yachol le'esrapos have, it was a situation where he was able to be healed. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Ashi says, Hilkach, therefore, afilu samonin b'shuk, even if there's samonim, herbs available in the marketplace to be healed with, that would be sufficient and the person would be exempt. Amar le Rav Acha brei de Rav Ashi, Rav Acha the son of Rav said to Rav Ashi, Nizdamnu lo samonin ma, what if he happened upon some herbs, what would be the halacha in that situation? Amar le said to him, Hare yotzumi bezin zakai, the person who committed the act, he ends up leaving court innocent, and again, he will not be liable in this case as well. And Rashi explains, Nizdamnu lo samonim lamuka achar hamaka. Let's say he gets struck, and after he gets struck, he has herbs. Velo kanan velo ripa atzmo, but he doesn't acquire them and he doesn't heal himself. Mahu, what's the halacha? Mi'amrinan harei yachol israpos. Do we say he could have healed himself, and so therefore the person's not liable? Odilmor, maybe came into b'shas rika lo have samonim, since at the moment of throwing it there was no herbs. Mechayiv, maybe then he'd be liable to hamakas mavesu, because he did strike him with a strike that could cause death. And the response was, Hare yotzumi bezdin zakoi, he left bezdin innocent. Kolomar, what he means to say is, Hoel v'kodem, amdu bedin matzulo zechus, since before he was taken to court, there is some kind of merit, ein lanu l'chayva, we have no reason to say that the person is liable, and therefore the person will not be liable. And the Gemara continues, V'yamar Rav, and Rava says, Zorak tzror bekosel, if a person throws a rock at a wall, v'chazr lachareh, and then it rebounds, it bounces off the wall, v'hargan kills, so chayiv, he is going to be chayiv. V'tana tunan, we have a Tana that taught the same idea in a Braisa, kagon elo hamisachagin bekador, like those who play with a ball, shahargu, if they kill, again the same kind of idea, it bounces off the wall, and it kills, b'mezid, if it's done on purpose, neharagin, so they get killed, that's considered murder, b'shogeg, if it happens by mistake, golin, so then they are exiled. The Gemara says, B'shogeg golem pshita. The fact that they're exiled if it happens by mistake, that's obvious. And the Gemara says, B'mezid neharagin itzrichle. But the fact that if they do it on purpose, they get killed, that's what was necessary to teach. That's already a chiddush, because ma'odetema, because what might you have said, hasras safiki, this would be a warning. We're warning these people for something that really is a doubt. We don't know if it will occur. Miyemar dehadra, who says it's going to return, who says it's going to bounce back in that fashion. Kamash malon. So that's what it's teaching us, that b'mezid, if there was a hasra, the person will be killed. And Rashi explains, Zorak tzur bekosel, again, he throws a rock at the wall, v'neskavin laharoges chaveru, he has intention to kill his friend, v'zorak tzur v'hika bekosel bekoach v'chazru mikochel achorea, and so he throws this rock at the wall, and it bounces back because of that strength, v'hargo, and it kills, chayev, he is liable, d'hanami kochahu, the point is that that's considered to be from his strength, the fact that he threw it, and it bounced, and then hit the person, that was his intention all along, and that's considered his koach, and therefore he's liable. And then the Gemara said, kagon elu hamisachakin bekador shahargu, like those who are playing with a ball and it kills. Regilin tinokos lahakos hakador bekosal. Rashi says that children, they would throw the ball against the wall bekoach, with strength. Kedei shetachzor lachore harbe. The idea is that it would bounce back a lot. Well, achash zorku hu rotz v'chavero ochis hakador. After he throws it, he runs, and his friend grabs the ball umako sobo, and then he tries to hit him with it. Im yochol lechaven ahu dezark bekosel. So if the person, again, he has that intention when he's throwing it on the wall, ashmin antana, the Tana is teaching us if he has intention that it should kill his friend when it returns, when it bounces back, and it has enough that it's able to kill, so chayiv, so again he's chayiv in that situation. And the Gemara continues, Tani Rav Tachlifa bar Ma'arava kamid Rabbi Avo. Rav Tachlifa bar Ma'arava taught before Rabbi Avo, kagon elu hamisachakin bekador. For example, those who are playing with a ball, shahargo, and again it kills, toch arba amos. If that happens within 4 amos, so pater, so then he's pater. But chutz la arba amos, but if it happens outside of 4 amos, so then chayiv, so then we're going to say he is chayiv. And Rashi explains, kagon elu hamisachin bekador, shahargu toch dalar amos paturin, em hoya hamuka omid besoch arba amos shel kosel. The case over here is the person who gets struck, if he's very close to the wall, within 4 amos of the wall, v'lo hispika lachzor dalar amos, he didn't even have a chance to go back 4 amos, achemetzaso v'hargaso, and it already strikes him and it kills him, pater hazorik migolas. So in that case, the person who threw it is pater from exile, but chutz la dalar amos chayiv. But if it happens already, he gets outside of 4 amos and it strikes him, so then chayiv golas, he's going to be chayiv going into exile. Rashi's understanding that all of this is a situation of shogeg, a situation where the person would go to golas. So again, within 4 amos of the wall, pater, outside of 4 amos of the wall, so then we say chayiv. And the Gemara continues, Amar le Ravina le Ravashi. So Ravina said to Ravashi regarding this halacha, Hey Chidami, what exactly is the case? If it is nichole, if he wanted it to happen in that fashion, afilu por sanami, so even a little bit also. And he lo nichole, and if he didn't want it in that fashion, afilu tuva namilo, so even if it would be a lot, we should not say that the person is liable. And Rashi explains, if he wanted it, then it should go more. So afilu por sanami l'chayev galus. So then, even if it would be a little bit, it should be chayev exile to harag b'shogeg, because he killed it by mistake. V'tayim ulekol mifteri, there would be no reason to say that he is exempt in that case. And if he didn't want it to go back that much, so even if it went more than 4 amos, he should be pater. Because what he wanted did not get fulfilled. In other words, the point over here is, it should all go by the intention of the person. If the intention of the person was that it should happen in the fashion that it happened, so then it shouldn't make a difference, dalet amos or not dalet amos. Diomar mar, because the master said, Vasher lo tzada, problem iskavin lizrok shtayim v'zorak dalet. We exclude a case based on the pasuk of Asher lo tzada. If he intended to throw something 2, and then he ended up throwing 4, we exclude that. Alma kevan de lo nichole deneze lo. So you see that if he didn't want it to go in that particular distance, then we say that he's not liable. So again, it should all go by whether nichole or not nichole. What's the difference? Dalet amos. And the Gemara continues, Amar Le, he said back to him, Stam misachgin b'chador. In general, when someone is playing with the kador, with the ball, kama da'ayli tvei meinach nichole, the closer he gets to the wall to make it go farther out, that's what he wants. And Rashi explains, Stam misachgin b'chador, kama da'ayli umekarvi l'kosel, the closer the person who's throwing the ball gets to the wall, b'shash azarkan, at the time they're throwing meinach nichole, that's what he wants, kadesha tachzor harbe, because he wants it to rebound a lot. Hilkach botzer midal amos, therefore if it goes less than 4 amos, lo we can assume he doesn't want that, and that's why it's automatic. It goes by 4 amos. If it all happens within 4 amos, we assume that's lo nichole, and we say pater in that case. But if it's chutz l'dalet amos, we assume that's nichole, and then he would be chayiv. And Rashi notes, Ista mefarshi hai chayavin u'patur mimisa. There are those who explain that the chayiv and pater over here is talking about the death penalty, not golus, who could go in shehisrubo. And the situation is there was a warning, and we're talking about a situation where it was on purpose, and there's a death penalty. That's another way to explain this Gemara. But the Gemara continues, L'meimer, does this all mean to say, D'chi agavna kochohu, that in such a situation where you throw something against a wall and it bounces back, that's considered to be kocho, that's considered to be from his strength? That seems to be the assumption of this whole discussion. Rashi says, D'chi agavna shechazr lachoreh, something bounces the other way, mikoach zrikasu, because he threw it chashiv lu kocho, that's considered to be kocho. Uramini, but we have the following contradiction. This is from a Mishnah in Meseches Para. HaMekadesh v'nafal kiddush al yado, someone is doing the sanctification, and it falls on his hand, o al atzad, or on the side, v'achar kach nafal l'shokas, and then the water falls into the trough. So possible, we say it's disqualified in such a case. And Rashi explains, HaMekadesh mechatos be'efer. This is talking about the mechatos. It's used to purify someone who's tamei meis, and you're using the efer of the para aduma, the ashes of the para aduma. Nesinas efer alamayim kari kiddush. Placing those ashes on the water, that's called kiddush. That's the sanctification we're talking about over here in the Mishnah. Kedetanan Meseches Para, like we say in the Mishnah in Meseches Para. So v'achar kach nafal l'shokas. So then what happens in this particular situation? It falls on his hand or it falls on the side, and then it falls into the trough. Evan chalula, that's the open stone. Shamayim nechnas and bo, where the water is, the water gathers there min hamayin from the spring, derech nekev shvoferes, through a hole, dechsiv mayim chaim el keli, sheteyeh chiyuson bekli, again like it says, it's mayim chaim that goes to the vessel, because salka daitach the nafal, and right now we think that when it says falling over here, to katani, kigon shenafal al yodo bekoach, the case is that it fell on his hand with strength, o al atzad, kolomar al tzad hakli, or on the side of the vessel with strength, umisham nitas bekoach l'shokas, and from there, it goes with that strength into the trough, the katani the puzzle, and it's saying that it's disqualified. It seems to be the same kind of situation of rebounding off one thing onto another, and that's not considered to be kocho. That's why we're saying it's disqualified, because it has to come mikocho. And the Gemara continues and answers, Hacha b'mayaskinon, here in this Mishnah, what are we talking about? B'shoses, we're talking about where it's dripping. Rashi says, B'shoses lo nitas mikoach nefila rishona. It's not that it's spraying because of that original falling. Ela me'atzmo chazer v'shasas miyado l'shokas, it kind of makes its way slowly, drips its way into the trough. And Rashi continues, Shoses kimomayim shoses in albirkov. The word shoses is like a language of dripping. She'eno nitas l'meirachok, it's not spraying at a distance. Ela nofel v'yord kenegdo, it's just falling in a natural fashion, and therefore, again, this Mishnah in Para is not relevant to our case. And the Gemara continues, Tashma, coming here a proof, also from the Mishnah in Meseches Para. Machat shayinasun al acheres, if a needle which is impure is on a shard, v'hiza aleh, and he sprays upon it the mechatas to purify it. Safek al machat, hiza, safek al acheres, hiza, it's a doubt whether he sprinkled it upon the needle or sprinkled it upon the shard. Umitza aleh, and the water sprinkles, it sprays upon the needle, haza also puzzle. That kind of sprinkling is going to be disqualified. And so again, the assumption over here is this is a similar case where it's bouncing off one surface onto the needle, and we're saying it's disqualified. It's not considered to be azah. It's not considered to be mikocho. And the Gemara continues and answers, Amar Rav Chinana bar Yehuda mishmei de Rav. Rav Chinana bar Yehuda says in the name of Rav, Motza itmar, that it shouldn't be mitzah in the Mishnah. It actually is Motza. It found its way. It found its way there. And as Rashi explains, Umitzah aleh kolomar umenacheres chazra v'nitzah aleh. The Gemara first understood mitzah, that it from the shard it actually returns, it rebounds and sprinkles upon it v'katani psula, and it says it's disqualified. Al malav kochohi. You see that it's not his strength. And the Gemara then answers, is Motza Idmar. It found its way is the proper text of the Mishnah. Lav Lashon Mitzui Dahave Hataza. It's not a language of Mitzui, which would be spraying. Katani, that's not what it says in the Mishnah. El Lashon Mitzi, it's a language of finding. Kolomar Hahazon Nimtzes Oleh means we found that water was sprinkled upon it. Ve'in Yaduim Betchilo Hizoleh. We don't know if there was originally sprinkled in this fashion directly on it. O Chazar Mikoach Hayitos, or maybe what happened is it bounced back onto it. O Shemelo Zevelo Zev, maybe neither of those things happened. El Al Acheres Hiza, maybe he sprinkled it on the shard. V'hayamadron, it was slanted. V'holcha Azal Al Amachat, and so then the water went to the needle. Deleka Kocho Klal, there would be no koach at all, and so therefore again in that case it's going to be disqualified. And the Gemara continues, Amar Papa says, Haiman de kafse lachavre, v'yashkel aleh bidka demaya. Let's say a person binds his friend, he ties up his friend, and then he directs a stream of water towards that person. So giri didehu, that's considered his arrows, umechayev, and he's liable. And hani mili b'koach rishon, that's true if it's direct koach, if it's the first koach, a direct strength resulting from what he did. Aval b'koach sheni, but if it's a secondary koach, so then grama bialmu, so then what happened is just grama, it's indirect, and therefore he would not be liable in that case. Rashi explains the kafse kosher yodav raglav al sfas hayom. He tied his hands and feet and he was near the sea. V'yashkel aleh bid kodemaya hifnes merutzas hamayim olav. He directed the water towards that person. Giri dideyu, so that's his arrows. Heinen chitzav, that's his arrows. V'areu kizorik bochetz, it's the equivalent of throwing an arrow at him. Uchrim mefarish v'yazal shamayim boy mikoach rishon olav miyad. And as the Gemara will explain, we're talking where the water directly comes to the person from mikoach rishon. It's like a direct mikoach rishon from the first strength, so to speak. For example, he put him by the banks of the sea, and there's a slant over there, and it directly hits that person. When he directed it to that direction, it immediately hit the person. But if it would be secondary, meaning he was a little distanced. If the water didn't directly hit him immediately from when it left its banks, rather after that, it went to that place where he was. So gramahu, that's a situation of indirect velomi kocho. That's not considered to be from his strength, and therefore he would not be liable in that case. And the Gemara continues, V'yamar Rapapa, and Rapapa says, Zarak tzror lamala, let's say a person throws a rock up, v'holchel etztadin, and it goes off to the sides, v'hargan, and kills, chayiv, so he's going to be liable in that case. Amar le marbar Ravashi, Rapapa, marbar Ravashi said to Rapapa, my taima, what's the reason for that? Mishum de kocho, you're saying that it's his koach, it's his strength. I kocho, but if it's really going out of it because of his strength, tezaleel, it should be going upward. The fact that it's going to the sides, doesn't that indicate that it's not really coming from his strength? Rashi explains, v'holchel etztadin, in derech nefilosa shelo nafla kenegdo, meaning as it's falling, it goes off to the sides. It doesn't fall directly opposite. Rather, when it's falling to the earth, it's going at a distance. Litzdadin, it's going a little to the sides. Now, if it would just fall directly and kill, he'd be potter. The lav kocho, that's clearly not his strength. That's just the gravity causing it to fall down. But the fact that it's falling a little bit at an angle, it's still coming from his koach. And Rashi continues, Tezel le'il. Again, the question is if it's really his strength, it should still be going upward. Because he threw it upward. That's the direction he threw it. He didn't throw it to the side. So only that should really be considered his koach. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Ayin Ches Amud Aleph.